Welcome back to our channel. There is a unique kind of worrying that settles into the heart of a leader. You worrying when things are moving too fast and you're struggling to keep up. Decisions piling up, expectations rising, pressure increasing. You worrying when things feel painfully slow, when prayers linger, unanswered and progress seems invisible. And you worrying when you look around and it appears that other people, other families seems to be succeeding, expanding, and flourishing, while you are still waiting. Waiting is hard for anyone, but waiting becomes heavier when you are responsible for people. When you are a leader, delays feel dangerous. When you are a leader, silence feels unsettling. When you are called by God, comparison feels unavoidable. And yet, Scripture does not ignore this tension. In fact, God addresses it directly. Psalm 37:7 says, "Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. Do not fret when people succeed in their ways." This verse was not written to passive people. It was written to faithful people who were tempted to worrying while doing the right thing. Psalm 37 is a wisdom psalm written by David, a man who knew what it meant to wait. David had been anointed king years before he ever sat on the throne. He had a promise long before he had a position. He had a calling while still living in caves. Psalm 37 was written to address a troubling reality. God's people were watching the wicked prosper while the faithful struggled. The psalm repeats one phrase again and again: "Do not fret." Why? Because fretting is what happens when faith feels delayed. David reminds God's people that apparent success is not the same as lasting fruit. That visible growth is not the same as divine approval. That timing is not a measure of faithfulness. And right in the middle of this psalm, David gives this command: "Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him." Stillness here does not mean inactivity. It means settled trust. Waiting patiently does not mean doing nothing. It means refusing to let anxiety dictate your obedience. David adds something very specific. Do not fret when people succeed in their ways. God knew comparison would be one of the greatest sources of anxiety for his leaders. Comparison whispers lies. You should be further along. You're falling behind. If God were really with you, things would look different. One of the fastest ways to drain your joy is comparison. When you focus on another person's platform, you stop paying attention to what God is doing right in front of you. Comparison shifts your gaze from faithfulness to visibility, from obedience to outcomes, from calling to competition, and comparison always leads to fretting, because you were never designed to carry someone else's assignment. God did not call you to someone else's position. He didn't ask you to manage someone else's growth curve. He didn't place on you the burden of someone else's results. He asked you to be faithful where you are. The pressure to produce is real, but it is not always spiritual. God measures differently than we do. He looks for obedience, not optics; faithfulness, not fame; trust, not timelines. Waiting patiently on God is not weakness, it is worship. When you wait without worrying, you are making a declaration about who God is. You are saying, "God, I trust your timing more than my pressure. I trust your wisdom more than my urgency. I trust your process more than my comparison." That kind of waiting honors God deeply. Worrying feels productive, but it is completely powerless. Worrying cannot speed up God's process. Jesus himself said worrying adds nothing, no length to life, no strength to faith. Worrying only steals today's peace. And peace is not something God gives after the breakthrough. Peace is something God gives during the waiting. Psalm 37 is not a call to denial, it is a call to trust. To be still, not because nothing matters, but because God is already at work. If you are waiting right now, if progress feels slow, if comparison feels loud, if responsibility feels heavy, hear the word of the Lord again. Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. God is not late. God is not distracted. God is not measuring you against anyone else. The same God who called you is the God who sustains you. And in the waiting, he is doing something deeper than growth. He is shaping trust. So do not fret, do not compare, do not surrender your peace. Wait patiently, because God is faithful. Thanks for sharing with us today. Leave a comment below if you're encouraged by this message. Share with a friend and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.